A busy terminal at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, the rhythmic hum of announcements echoing and anxious travelers clutching boarding passes like their golden tickets. Among them stands Cassandra Brooks, a poised, elegant black woman who radiates confidence in her tailored grey suit. She's next in line at the VIP boarding lane for a Delta Airlines flight. But as she steps forward, the gate agent's voice slices through the air. "Sorry, ma'am, you're not VIP enough." A hush ripples through the crowd, eyes darting curiously. Little does the gate agent know that behind Cassandra's calm expression lies a twist that will shake the entire airline. Airports have an unmistakable energy. People rush from lounge to gate, juggling suitcases and boarding passes, while the PA system booms with boarding calls. For many, it's a place of transition from one city to another, from one life phase to the next. For Cassandra Brooks, it's an arena of possibilities. Cassandra was no stranger to these corridors. She had spent the last decade building her reputation as a brilliant business strategist. At 35, she was an accomplished entrepreneur, co-founder of several tech startups, and a key investor in projects that championed diversity in the corporate world. Most recently, she'd ventured into something new: aviation. After years of being a frequent traveler and fielding frustrations about service quality, seat comfort, and overall inclusivity, Cassandra had quietly purchased a significant number of shares in Delta Airlines. In fact, her stake was large enough to grant her a seat at important meetings, a seat that gave her voice weight in shaping corporate policies. On this particular morning, Cassandra arrived at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport bright and early. She was departing for a major investor conference in San Francisco. Although she could have used her executive privileges to cut lines and access private services, she preferred blending in with the crowd, quietly observing how things played out for regular travelers. It was part curiosity and part responsibility, seeing how the airline in which she held substantial shares treated everyday customers. Rolling a sleek carry-on behind her, Cassandra navigated the bustling concourse. She caught glimpses of families reuniting, corporate teams preparing for business trips, and even newlyweds glowing with excitement for their honeymoons. She listened closely to the swirl of announcements overhead: flight delays, gate changes, final boarding calls. Every detail mattered to her, because these experiences shaped the perception of Delta's brand. In a subtle move to remain low-key, Cassandra wore a simple yet professional outfit: a fitted grey blazer, matching trousers, and a pair of comfortable but polished heels. Her hair was styled in neat twists that framed her face, and her only jewelry was a silver bracelet gifted to her by her late grandmother. Underneath her poised exterior, she was restless for the chance to see how the day would unfold. She had a growing sense that soon something would test her composure. As she checked the time on her watch, another gift from a dear friend, Cassandra noted she had plenty of time to make her flight. She decided to stroll around and see how the lines were moving at the check-in counters. Some were shorter, some longer, but overall employees seemed in good spirits. For a moment, she felt pride. She'd been part of an internal push for better employee engagement programs over the past year, believing that well-treated staff offer better service. It seemed to be paying off. When it was time to proceed through security, she joined the standard line, politely declining when a helpful employee pointed her to the VIP lane. She wanted to see how daily passengers were treated. It didn't take long to spot the usual bottlenecks: families with large strollers, travelers fumbling for IDs, others rushing to remove laptops and liquids from bags. Still, the Transportation Security Administration officers were doing their best to move things along in an orderly manner. Cassandra breezed through the scanner, her pre-check privileges marking a quick wave through, but she didn't look back to see if anyone recognized her. If they did, she didn't want the attention. Finally, she approached the gate for her flight to San Francisco. A gentle female voice on the intercom, Delta Flight 1745. Departing for San Francisco will begin boarding in 20 minutes. Passengers requiring extra assistance, families with small children, and our VIP passengers will be invited to pre-board first. Cassandra looked around for a seat, but found most were taken, so she stood near the gate phone in hand, scanning emails. At that exact moment, she noticed a woman in a navy blue Delta uniform step behind the podium. The name tag read, Rebecca. Tall with blonde hair pinned in a tight bun, the agent wore a bright smile, at least at first glance. But Cassandra's intuition told her the smile might not be so bright once stressed. She had seen that brand of forced courtesy many times. When pre-boarding began, Cassandra waited. She wasn't in a rush. She was used to letting others board first, especially if they truly needed the time and space. But as the lines shuffled and the VIP queue opened, Cassandra eventually made her way over. The crowd thinned, revealing the gate agent, Rebecca, scanning boarding passes. When Cassandra was nearly at the front, a nervous-looking elderly man stepped forward, showing his VIP membership card. Rebecca's face lit up as she greeted him warmly, scanning his boarding pass. Next in line was a corporate executive type in an expensive suit, brandishing his diamond medallion credentials. He too was welcomed with a practiced grin. All routine. Then came Cassandra's turn. She held out her boarding pass, the first-class seat clearly printed on it. She also had the airline's top-tier loyalty status, though she rarely used it explicitly. Before Cassandra could offer a polite good morning, Rebecca locked eyes with her. In that brief second, Cassandra read the entire situation. The gate agent's smile evaporated, replaced by a pinched expression. "Ma'am," Rebecca said, her voice suddenly loud. "This line is for VIP passengers and priority boarding only. You'll have to wait over there with the rest of the passengers." Polite confusion flickered across Cassandra's face, but she maintained her composure. "I'm aware," she said softly. "Here's my boarding pass. I'm in first class, and I also have diamond medallion status." Rebecca barely glanced at the boarding pass, as though it were an afterthought. "Right," she replied with a chilly tone. "But are you sure you're in the right line? You need to have the proper credentials." In the row of seats nearby, a few other passengers looked on curiously. One man in a sports jacket frowned, aware of the tension. A woman traveling with her child quickly tugged the child closer, possibly sensing potential conflict. Cassandra, still poised, tried again. "Yes, ma'am. I'm in the correct line," she said, lifting her phone slightly to show her digital VIP membership credentials as well. "I have my Delta Diamond membership on the app right here." But Rebecca didn't even look at the screen. "I'm sorry, but we're only allowing recognized VIP members at this time," she repeated more firmly. Cassandra's lips pressed into a thin line. She felt her pulse quicken, a flicker of frustration. Yet she refused to raise her voice. "I'd appreciate it if you could actually check my boarding pass in the system," she said. "I promise you, I'm exactly where I need to be." At that moment, the gate agent's expression shifted from dismissive to downright hostile. "Listen," Rebecca snapped in a tone that made heads turn. "We have a lot of people who think they're VIPs and try to sneak through this line. I'm sure you think you're very important, but you're not on my VIP list. Why don't you just wait for general boarding?" Several onlookers exchanged looks. Some were confused. Others seemed embarrassed for Cassandra, and a handful looked outraged. Cassandra, for her part, took a calming breath. She had dealt with subtle and not so subtle discrimination before. Yet something about this agent's tone stung. It was the condescending arrogance, the immediate assumption that Cassandra didn't belong, that triggered a lifetime of suppressed frustration. She glanced at her watch. Still time to solve this calmly. "I'm sure there's a misunderstanding," Ms. Rebecca Cassandra said, forcing a polite smile. "Why don't we just quickly scan my boarding pass and settle this?" Rebecca's jaw clenched. Instead of scanning the pass, she folded her arms, stepping away from the scanner. "I don't want to hold up the rest of the VIP line," she said, as if Cassandra were the one causing the delay. "Step aside, please." "Just scan the pass," Cassandra repeated, keeping her voice level. An uncomfortable silence flooded the area. Another agent, a younger man named Miguel, stood behind Rebecca, looking torn. He glanced between Cassandra and Rebecca, obviously aware something was off, but uncertain how to intervene. Passengers in line started shifting awkwardly, unsure what to do. Finally, Cassandra spoke, her voice calm but firm. "I'd like to speak with the supervisor." Rebecca rolled her eyes. "Ma'am, I'm the one in charge here," she insisted. "Now please step aside before I call security." That's when Cassandra felt a searing wave of indignation. This was not just about boarding a plane. This was a blatant display of prejudice. She recognized it in the gate agent's body language, in the refusal to check credentials, in the immediate threat of calling security. She had seen it too many times in her life. Where other passengers' privileges were validated without question, her presence was being challenged at every turn. Yet Cassandra reined in her temper. She refused to be goaded into anger. Instead, she made a silent vow. If Delta Airlines had employees like this, something was very wrong. And if it took her stepping forward publicly with her position as a major shareholder, so be it. But not yet. She wanted the gate agent to hang herself with her own rope first. Cassandra took a step back, raising her hands in a gesture of peace. "All right," she said, her voice carrying a warning edge. "I'll wait aside for a moment. But trust me, Missile, Rebecca, you will regret not scanning that boarding pass." Rebecca's nostrils flared. She didn't respond, but the smug victory in her eyes was unmistakable as she resumed scanning the next passenger's ticket. Cassandra moved aside, but she didn't go far. She simply waited, head held high, determined to show the gate agent that she was not intimidated. And so the gate agent returned to her tasks, occasionally cutting an irritated glance at Cassandra, as though to remind her of her place. Passengers boarded, some offering Cassandra sympathetic looks. A few shook their heads at the injustice. But it would only be a matter of minutes before an even bigger scene unfolded, one that no one in that gate area would forget. Cassandra knew one thing for certain. She was no longer just an observer evaluating the customer service climate of her airline. She was now at the center of a personal storm that demanded resolution, and she wasn't about to back down. Cassandra stood near a tall window overlooking the runway. The hush of the gate area was punctuated by occasional announcements. Groups of travelers funneled down the jet bridge. Some seats in the waiting area had emptied. But Cassandra's mind spun with the confrontation from moments ago. Rebecca, the gate agent, had returned to scanning passes, her body language rigid. Meanwhile, a swirling pit of unease settled in Cassandra's stomach. Not because she doubted she would get on the flight, she knew she had every right to be on that plane in first class, but because the brazen display of disrespect rattled her. This was precisely the kind of behavior she'd hoped to eradicate by investing in Delta. Something was broken if an employee felt emboldened to to treat paying passengers that way. The tension was broken by the voice of Miguel, the younger agent. He sidled up to Cassandra, looking a bit skittish. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said quietly. "Is there something I can help you with?" Cassandra studied him. He was probably in his mid-20s, new to the job, judging by the nervous way he handled his ID badge. But there was genuine concern in his eyes. She offered him a polite smile. "Thank you for asking, Miguel," she said, reading his name tag. "I'm supposed to be boarding with first class. My seat is in 2A, but the agent Rebecca refuses to scan my boarding pass." Miguel pursed his lips, brows knitting in confusion. She wouldn't scan it. Did she say why? "She said I'm not on the VIP list," Cassandra replied matter-of-factly. "But I have Diamond Medallion status and a first-class ticket. So I'd like to speak with a supervisor, or at least have someone scan this properly." Miguel glanced over his shoulder at Rebecca, who was preoccupied with the last few passengers. He winced slightly. "Oh well, Ms. Rebecca is the lead agent here. But maybe I can scan it." His voice lowered. I don't want to step on her toes." He had reason to be nervous. Usurping your lead agent could be risky for a rookie. Cassandra admired his willingness to help despite that. "Miguel, all I need is for someone to confirm my boarding pass. If you have the authority to do it, then please go right ahead." He glanced again at Rebecca, who was now engrossed in the computer, presumably updating the system before closing the flight. The last passenger from the general boarding line slipped down the jet bridge. Sure, let me do it quickly," he whispered, motioning for Cassandra to follow him behind the counter. Cassandra approached, ignoring the scowl that formed on Rebecca's face as soon as she spotted them. Miguel carefully took the pass from Cassandra's phone and scanned it on the reader. A small beep sounded, and the screen displayed a green check mark. "Yep," Miguel said, relief evident in his tone. "Seat 2A, Diamond Medallion." He looked at Cassandra and gave a tiny shrug as if to say, "I knew it would work." But they weren't alone. Rebecca had swiveled around, eyes blazing. "Miguel, what are you doing?" she demanded. Miguel held up the scanning device. "I'm helping this passenger, Ms. Rebecca." Rebecca's gaze flicked between Miguel and Cassandra, her jaw setting in a tight line. "I already told her she's not on the VIP list," she insisted, but her voice was losing its conviction. She pressed a few buttons on her own screen, frowning as if the system had betrayed her. This must be some kind of error. Cassandra, still calm, allowed herself a small sigh. "Rebecca." "I'm already scanned in," she pointed out. "The system recognized my ticket and status. I've been a Diamond Medallion member for years." There was a momentary hush, a standoff in the gate area. Some passengers lingered, their curiosity piqued by the confrontation. Others had already boarded, oblivious to the tension. Cassandra's heart rate kicked up a notch. On principle, she wanted this woman to acknowledge her mistake. But Rebecca's pride was clearly huge. She huffed, turning away, as though the situation was beneath her. "Well, if the system says it's fine, then so be it," she said curtly. "Board if you want. Flight's nearly closed anyway." Miguel cleared his throat, turning to Cassandra. "You can go ahead, ma'am," he said, relief in his eyes. "Have a good flight." Cassandra thanked him, but she stayed put for a moment, turning back to Rebecca. "I appreciate your time," she said. Her tone measured but pointed. "You might want to treat your future passengers with a little more care." This was completely unnecessary. Rebecca's cheeks flushed red, and she spluttered something under her breath. Before she could form a coherent response, Cassandra pivoted, walking briskly down the jet bridge. She was determined to maintain her dignity. Inside, though, her frustration simmered. She resolved not to let the matter rest. Once in her seat, she planned to contact Delta's management. Racism and gatekeeping had no place in the company she had helped shape. Cassandra settled into seat 2A, a plush first-class seat near the window. The flight attendants offered warm smiles, offering her a pre-departure beverage. Cassandra accepted a glass of water, taking the moment to breathe away the tension. She glanced around, noting the layout of the cabin. The last few first-class passengers filtered in. She recognized the corporate executive from earlier, who took his seat in 2C. They exchanged polite nods. The cabin door closed with a whoosh, and the flight attendants began their standard checks. In the back of her mind, Cassandra replayed the confrontation with Rebecca. It wasn't the first time she had encountered bias, but it stung anew each time. She wondered if she'd been singled out because of her appearance, an educated guess given the remarks. Perhaps Rebecca had decided that a black woman in a suit and diamond status was out of place. Or maybe she was just having a bad day and decided to unleash it on the nearest target. Either way, it was unacceptable. The aircraft taxied out onto the runway. Cassandra shifted her focus, remembering the conference ahead in San Francisco. She was scheduled to present a keynote speech on building inclusive company cultures. How ironic, she thought, given what she'd just experienced. Still, she was a firm believer in turning adversity into motivation. If anything, this incident would add passion to her speech. As the engines roared and the plane lifted into the sky, Cassandra gazed out the window, the Atlanta skyline shrinking below. She felt that familiar rush of wonder and possibility that came with every takeoff. Flying was a privilege. She hoped that the rest of the flight would be calm, a chance to compose herself. An hour into the flight, the seatbelt sign dinged off, and the flight attendants began preparing for the meal service in first class. Cassandra pulled out her laptop to catch up on emails, but she found her thoughts drifting to Delta's internal structure. She recalled the last shareholders' meeting she'd attended via video conference. She had quietly raised concerns about increasing sensitivity training for gate agents. Many executives had assured her they were working on it. But obviously there were gaps. She was in the middle of drafting a note to one of the airline's HR directors when she heard the corporate executive across the aisle clear his throat. "Ma'am," he said politely, "I just wanted to say I'm sorry for what happened at the gate." Cassandra paused, glancing up. He was probably in his late 40s, sporting a crisp navy suit and a tie with a small gold emblem. "Thank you," she replied, giving a small smile. "I appreciate that. You saw what happened?" He nodded gravely. "Hard not to. I boarded right before you. Rebecca was all smiles for me, but as soon as you stepped up, she turned cold." It was uncomfortable to watch. He hesitated, then added, "I just wanted you to know that some of us noticed. We're not all oblivious." Touched by his gesture, Cassandra set aside her laptop. "Thank you," she repeated. "It means a lot that you'd say something. I'm used to it, sadly, but it never stops being frustrating." He leaned over slightly, speaking in a hushed tone. "If you'd like, I'll back you up if you decide to file a complaint. My name's Andrew Carter. I'm a Diamond Medallion member as well." Cassandra carefully stored his name. "That's very kind of you, Andrew," she said. "I actually plan on taking this further with Delta management." For the record, that was blatant discrimination. Andrew grimaced. "It was," he said, simply. "And it's the kind of thing that gives a company a bad reputation." He paused, then extended a business card. "Feel free to reach out if you need a witness statement. I fly often. I've seen my fair share of rude agents, but this felt personal. Cassandra took the card. "Thank you," she said again, more softly this time. "I have a feeling your testimony might come in handy." They shared a moment of mutual understanding. Cassandra felt a warm sense of reassurance. She wasn't alone. There were allies willing to step in. The flight attendant came by offering choices for lunch, a grilled chicken salad or pasta in cream sauce. Cassandra opted for the salad, Andrew for the pasta. As they ate, Cassandra's mind continued to churn with possibilities, strategies, and the steps she would need to take to ensure accountability. 2 hours later, in the hush of mid-flight, most of the cabin was either dozing or watching movies. Cassandra sipped coffee and opened her laptop once more. The note she typed up began as a formal complaint, but she found herself pouring far more detail into it, describing not only Rebecca's actions, but also the need for systematic improvements, better hiring practices, ongoing cultural competency training, and a clearer channel for passengers to voice complaints without fear of dismissal. She paused, considering how to sign off on this complaint. Under normal circumstances, she might just use her name. But given her status as a major shareholder, she thought it might be prudent to mention that as well. After all, she wasn't just an aggrieved customer. She was an investor whose concerns could not be swept under the rug. The question was whether to address it immediately, wait until she was on the ground. Her decision was made for her when the in-flight Wi-Fi connection faltered, making it impossible to send emails. She sighed, saving the draft to her laptop and shutting the device. The complaint would have to wait until she landed. For now, she closed her eyes, letting the white noise of the cabin lull her into a brief rest. In that brief half-sleep, she remembered her grandmother's words about dignity and resilience. "Don't let them take your joy, child," her grandmother would say, "but never let them walk all over you." Indeed, Cassandra intended to stand firm, but she refused to let bitterness consume her. The path forward was through measured, decisive action. Soon the captain's voice announced their descent into San Francisco. Cassandra fastened her seatbelt, stowed her belongings, and gazed out at the picturesque approach over the bay. She pictured the Golden Gate Bridge in the distance, the rolling fog. A new city, a new day, and hopefully a chance to restore some faith in the idea that change was possible, even in a massive industry like aviation. As the plane touched down with a gentle bump, Cassandra felt a surge of determination. The gate agent back in Atlanta might have thought she was just another passenger to dismiss. But Cassandra had different plans. By the time she was done, Rebecca and the higher-ups at Delta would realize that they'd singled out the wrong person. Cassandra arrived at the Moscone Center in San Francisco after a quick ride from the airport. The bright city air smelled of salt from the nearby bay. Skyscrapers soared overhead, and the hustle of the city fueled Cassandra's adrenaline. She had a keynote speech to deliver in 2 days, and her schedule was packed media interviews, networking dinners, panel discussions. But the first order of business was sending off her formal complaint. After checking into her hotel and refreshing herself, she composed a thorough letter detailing the incident with Rebecca. She copied several senior-level managers at Delta, including the Vice President of Customer Experience and the Director of Diversity and Inclusion. She made it clear she was not only a passenger, but also a significant shareholder. Finally, she CC'd Andrew Carter, who had offered to back her up with his witness statement. Before hitting send, she took one last look, ensuring the tone was professional, yet unyielding. It contained direct language about racial bias and the unprofessional conduct displayed by the gate agent. With a click, the email soared out into the digital ether. Cassandra felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Almost immediately, she received an automated response from Delta's system, acknowledging receipt. She expected the actual human response would take a few days, or at least until the next business day. Satisfied, she went about her activities, turning her attention to the upcoming conference. She spent that afternoon in a panel discussion about corporate responsibility in the tech and travel industries. Cassandra's insights were well received, her emphasis on empathy and inclusion resonating with many. After the panel, she attended a cocktail reception, hobnobbing with venture capitalists, CEOs, and thought leaders from various sectors. Despite the social swirl, her mind occasionally drifted back to the email she had sent. It was around 9 in the evening when her phone buzzed. Cassandra excused herself from a lively conversation about green aviation technology and checked the notification. It was an email from Delta's VP of Customer Experience, Mark Fellows. She found a quiet corner of the reception hall and opened the message. Subject urgent. Follow-up to your complaint. From Mark Fellows, VP. Customer Experience, Delta Airlines message. Dear Ms. Brooks, we have received your complaint regarding the incident at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport. We take these matters seriously, and I want to personally assure you that Delta Airlines does not tolerate discrimination in any form. I have escalated this to our internal investigations team, who will be speaking with staff at the Atlanta gate you mentioned. We would appreciate any further details or witness statements you can provide. If you have time for a brief call this week, I'd be happy to schedule it at your earliest convenience. Sincerely, Mark Fellows. VP of Customer Experience, Delta Airlines, Cassandra allowed herself a small smile. The swift response suggested that mentioning her status as a shareholder had caught their attention. She typed a quick reply, expressing thanks and offering a couple of time slots when she'd be available for a call. She also mentioned Andrew Carter again, providing his contact details if needed. Knowing the matter was now officially in motion gave Cassandra a sense of calm. She returned to the reception determined to enjoy the rest of the evening. If Delta was truly committed to improving, they would handle this swiftly and transparently. The following day was a whirlwind of meetings, interviews, and a working lunch with potential investors. Cassandra discussed her upcoming keynote and fielded questions about how she, as a successful black female entrepreneur, navigated a world often dominated by a select demographic. She had become something of a role model for young professionals looking to break barriers. It was late afternoon when she saw a missed call from an Atlanta number. Checking her voicemail, she discovered it was from Delta's internal investigations team, requesting a conversation. Cassandra called them back during a break in her schedule. A woman named Geraldine answered, identifying herself as the lead investigator. Ms. Brooks. Geraldine began, her voice measured. Thank you for returning my call. I'd like to clarify a few points about your complaint regarding the gate agent at ATL, specifically Gate 26, for Flight 11745 to San Francisco. Cassandra filled Geraldine in with every detail from the tone of Rebecca's voice to the exact conversation that took place. She explained how the gate agent refused to scan her boarding pass, how Miguel eventually assisted, and how Rebecca then tried to brush it off. She also brought up Andrew Carter's willingness to provide a statement. Geraldine asked for a written statement or recorded testimony from Andrew. I want you to know, she said carefully, that we take this very seriously. Delta is committed to ensuring our staff reflect our values. If our employee violated company policy, there will be repercussions. Cassandra remained cordial. I appreciate that, Geraldine. I really do. But let's be clear, this is more than just policy. It's about basic human decency and equitable treatment for all passengers. Rebecca tried to deny me VIP boarding because she assumed I didn't belong there. That's not just a violation of policy, it's discrimination. Geraldine's voice tightened a bit. Understood, Miss Brooks. I'll be in touch soon. By the time the call ended, Cassandra felt a flicker of hope. The matter had escalated beyond routine lip service. Now the question was whether Delta would step up to make tangible changes, or if they would settle for slapping Rebecca on the wrist. Cassandra suspected the latter was no longer an option, especially once they realized the scope of her influence within the company's shareholder structure. That evening, Cassandra found a moment of stillness in her hotel suite. She made a cup of herbal tea and opened her laptop scanning news articles. Her big keynote was the next morning, and she needed to finalize her slides. But her attention kept slipping to her email inbox. No new messages from Delta. No additional calls. Perhaps tomorrow would bring more progress. She reflected on her strategy. She could have walked away from the entire fiasco, chalking it up to one person's narrow-mindedness. But that's how systemic bias thrives in silence. Instead, she chose to leverage her position. It was as much about making a statement to the broader public as it was about personal vindication. Cassandra was determined that Delta would learn from this and do better. Outside the city, lights glimmered. Cassandra leaned back, sipping tea, thinking of her grandmother again, of how proud she would be to see Cassandra standing up for what was right. The memory gave her strength. Tomorrow was a new day, and with it came the promise of speaking her truth to a large audience. She needed rest. Morning arrived crisp and bright. Cassandra dressed in a tailored navy pantsuit, slipping on a pair of comfortable heels. She had a calm routine before any major speech, a light breakfast, a quick mental run-through of key points, and a few grounding breaths. The Moscone Center buzzed with activity. Tech entrepreneurs, policy experts, and curious attendees packed the main auditorium, eager for the day's sessions. Cassandra was the second speaker on the agenda. The event host introduced her with an enthusiastic flourish. Please welcome Cassandra Brooks, visionary, entrepreneur, investor, and champion of inclusive corporate cultures. Applause thundered through the hall as Cassandra stepped up to the podium. She surveyed the crowd, thousands of faces, many bright with anticipation. The stage lights glowed warmly, and the hush of collective focus enveloped her. She launched into her keynote with confidence, weaving in stories of her entrepreneurial journey, highlighting the importance of empathy-driven leadership and calling for diversity to be more than a buzzword, rather a driving force in corporate strategy. About 20 minutes into the talk, Cassandra's phone silenced. Of course, vibrated. She noticed the screen light up briefly. Another call from Atlanta. She ignored it, pushing forward. The show must go on. She concluded with a stirring anecdote about her grandmother's wisdom and how businesses like people had to keep learning if they wanted to grow. The room erupted in cheers, and Cassandra stepped down, heart pounding with triumph. Over the next hour, she participated in a meet and greet. People lined up to ask questions and offer praise. Some wanted advice for their startups. Others simply wanted to thank her for the inspiration. A young black woman approached, eyes shining. "Your words made me feel seen," she said. "Thank you for reminding us we belong in these spaces." Cassandra smiled deeply, touched. "We do belong," she said. "Never let anyone convince you otherwise." Afterward, Cassandra found a moment to check her phone. She saw a voicemail from the same Atlanta number. Her pulse quickened as she tapped to listen. "Ms. Brooks, this is Geraldine from Delta's investigations team. I'd like to inform you that we've gathered sufficient evidence regarding your incident. We've spoken with Miguel Andrew Carter, and we attempted to speak with Ms. Rebecca as well. We'd appreciate if you could give us a call back at your earliest convenience to discuss next steps. Thank you." Cassandra inhaled sharply, feeling a swirl of emotions. So developments were happening quickly. She excused herself from the conference hustle and found a quiet lounge area. She dialed Geraldine's number, waiting as it rang once, twice, 3 times. Geraldine answered. "Miss Brooks, thank you for calling back." "Of course," Cassandra replied, her voice steady. "What's the update?" Geraldine's tone was formal. "We've completed preliminary interviews. Mr. Andrew Carter provided a written statement corroborating your account. Miguel, the junior gate agent, also confirmed most of the details. We have reason to believe that Miss Rebecca singled you out based on assumptions about your status and possibly due to racial bias. This is a direct violation of several Delta policies, including our Code of Conduct and our non-discrimination policy. We will be taking immediate action." Cassandra felt a strange mix of relief and disappointment. Relief that the system was acknowledging the wrongdoing, disappointment that it had happened in the first place. "What kind of action, if I may ask?" Geraldine paused. "We can't discuss all the details of an internal HR decision. However, I can tell you that Ms. Rebecca has been suspended pending further review. We are also recommending additional sensitivity training for the ATL ground staff, particularly in the VIP areas." Suspended. Cassandra wondered if that would be enough to change a deeply ingrained mindset. Then again, it wasn't her job to micromanage staff discipline, only to ensure accountability. Still, a niggling doubt surfaced. A single suspension might not fix the deeper issue. Geraldine continued. "Our VP of Customer Experience, Mark Fellows, would also like to speak with you personally about broader changes we can make. As a major shareholder, your input carries weight in these discussions. Would you be open to a conference call next week?" "Yes," Cassandra said, without hesitation. "I'd be more than willing to help shape better policies and training. This should never happen to another passenger." Geraldine thanked her and ended the call. Cassandra sat for a moment, phone still in hand. The gears of corporate machinery were turning, but would it result in lasting transformation? Her keynote that morning had emphasized that true inclusion required more than token gestures. It required structural change. Maybe, just maybe, she could push Delta to implement something substantive, like mandatory bias training and a clearer chain of accountability. A sense of accomplishment washed over her, yet she also recognized that the path ahead was still steep. She stood up, smoothed her suit jacket, and headed back into the conference throng. If she was going to talk the talk on stage about inclusive cultures, she needed to walk the walk in her own investments. Time moved swiftly. Over the next few days, Cassandra wrapped up her commitments in San Francisco and flew back to Atlanta in time for the scheduled conference call with Mark Fellows and other top executives. The call took place via video conference in a sleek, glass-walled boardroom at Delta's headquarters. Cassandra, wearing a confident smile, arrived armed with a portfolio of research on best practices for mitigating bias in customer-facing roles. Mark Fellows greeted her warmly, joined by Geraldine and a panel of 5 other leaders ranging from HR directors to operations managers. Ms. Brooks. Mark began once everyone was seated. "We appreciate your time. Let me start by apologizing on behalf of Delta for your experience. We understand the gravity of this situation. I'd like to hear your thoughts on how we can ensure no other passenger experiences such discrimination." Cassandra leaned forward, folding her hands on the table. "Thank you for addressing this so promptly. Mark," she began. "First, we need to acknowledge that this isn't an isolated incident. It's indicative of a deeper problem. While I believe in accountability for individuals like Rebecca, I also believe we need a structural approach. Mandatory sensitivity training is crucial, not just a one-off session, but an ongoing program. We also need a transparent complaints process so passengers feel safe reporting discrimination without it being swept under the rug. Mark nodded occasionally, jotting notes. The HR director, a woman named Janice, interjected. We've looked at several training modules that incorporate real-life scenarios. But historically, these programs are met with resistance. Some employees feel singled out. How do we address that? Cassandra met Janice's gaze, by framing it not as punishment, but as professional development. Every staff member at Delta has a role in customer experience. Training them to be culturally competent and empathetic is an investment in the company's reputation and revenue. Studies show diverse, inclusive environments improve service quality and employee morale. This translates to customer loyalty, which boosts the bottom line. An approving hum went around the table. Mark turned to an operations manager who oversaw the Atlanta airport staff. Lisa, do you have the capacity to roll out such a program effectively? Lisa fiddled with her pen. We do have an existing structure for training updates. We could integrate a new bias training module, but we'll need support from upper management in terms of budget and time allocation. Mark gave a decisive nod. You'll have it. I want to see a proposal by next quarter, including a timeline for rolling out and assessing the training's effectiveness. Cassandra felt a wave of satisfaction. This was more progress than she'd expected. Thank you, Mark, she said. I'm also willing to provide input from my perspective as an investor and frequent flyer. There's one more thing. Transparency. How are we planning to let the public know that Delta is taking real steps to address potential bias? Mark exchanged glances with the communications manager present. We're going to release a statement about our commitment to fair treatment for all passengers. We'll also outline the steps we're taking to retrain staff. I'd like your endorsement on that statement, Ms. Brooks, assuming it aligns with your vision. Cassandra smiled. I'd be happy to review and endorse the statement, provided it's not just lip service. Geraldine spoke up. It won't be. We're determined to learn from this. The meeting wrapped up on a positive note. As Cassandra left the boardroom, she felt the warmth of genuine accomplishment. But her optimism was soon overshadowed by an unexpected phone call from an unknown number. She stepped into a quiet hallway to answer. Hello. A hushed voice came through. Ms. Brooks. This is DeAndre Washington. I work at ATL as a baggage handler. I overheard something that might be important for you to know. Do you have a minute? Cassandra frowned, stepping away from the glass walls. DeAndre, how did you get my number? You gave a talk at my cousin's community program last year. He explained, his tone urgent. She had your business card, and I recognized your name because I heard some folks talking about how you had that run-in with Ms. Rebecca. There's talk going around the airport about a plan to hush up the incident. I don't have all the details, but I thought you should be aware. Cassandra's heart sank. What kind of plan? I'm not totally sure, DeAndre admitted. But I heard talk of some supervisors wanting to downplay the story and blame it on an honest mistake. They're worried about Delta's image, so they might be planning to spin it like you misunderstood something. I thought you'd want to know. Cassandra closed her eyes. Corporate double-dealing, even with top-level managers, seeming cooperative. Certain middle managers might be more interested in protecting the brand than acknowledging wrongdoing. "Thank you, DeAndre," she said carefully. "I appreciate the heads up." She ended the call and leaned against the wall, her mind racing. This complicated matters. Could it be that certain individuals within Delta were planning to undermine the steps Mark Fellows had just promised? She recalled how quickly companies can pivot to damage control, sometimes brushing real issues under the rug with PR spin. A flicker of anger sparked inside her. She had come so far, she wouldn't let them sabotage the truth. Resolving to keep her guard up, Cassandra rejoined the flow of employees in the corridor, determined to see justice served. Over the next week, Cassandra found herself embroiled in a whirlwind of back-and-forth communications with Delta. The official statement was in draft mode. She and Mark Fellows exchanged emails, refining language that both acknowledged wrongdoing and promised concrete improvements. On the surface, everything looked smooth, but DeAndre's warning lingered in her mind. She took steps to protect herself, saving all email threads, recording phone calls with Delta's consent, citing note-taking purposes, and retaining Andrew Carter's statement in multiple locations. She was preparing for any potential turnabout. Sure enough, trouble brewed. Late one night, an article surfaced on a small aviation blog suggesting the entire fiasco at ATL was a misunderstanding. The blog cited an anonymous Delta supervisor who claimed Ms. Brooks had arrived at the gate without proper identification and that the gate agent was simply following protocol. The article subtly implied Cassandra's complaint was an overreaction. Cassandra read it, fury coiling in her chest. This was exactly the type of spin DeAndre had warned about. Proper identification. She had her diamond medallion card, her boarding pass, everything. The gate agent simply refused to scan it until Miguel intervened. The blog article went on to say, sources indicate Ms. Brooks might be inflating the incident for personal gain, though it did not clarify what that gain would be. Cassandra's jaw clenched. Personal gain. Did they think she was launching a smear campaign for a lawsuit or fame? She already had money and recognition. This was about principle. She immediately called Mark Fellows, waking him. "Mark, have you seen the Aviation Insider blog article?" He yawned audibly. "Just read it." "I'm so sorry. This is not an official statement from Delta. We have no idea who talked to them." Cassandra's voice trembled with restrained anger. "So it's an internal leak. Someone is trying to sabotage the official statement and discredit me. I can't let this stand." "I understand," Mark said, now fully awake. "I'll investigate first thing in the morning. For now, please know this does not reflect Delta's stance. Our official statement is still being finalized, and we're committed to accountability. Please hold tight." As she ended the call, Cassandra realized it was time to use her biggest trump card. She had tried to handle this diplomatically, working within the system. But some factions inside Delta were determined to protect themselves at her expense. They needed a clear reminder of who she was and what power she held. The following morning, she drafted a letter to Delta's board of directors, making it clear she would not tolerate any misrepresentation. In the letter, she spelled out her experience as a shareholder, the discriminatory incident, and the subsequent attempts by certain supervisors to spin it. She attached copies of her share ownership documents, showing she held a substantial stake in the airline, a stake large enough to request a special hearing if needed. Enclosed, she wrote, "Are my official credentials and the ownership papers verifying my status as one of Delta's largest individual private shareholders under my holding company, Brooks and Associates. Should the defamation and cover-up attempts persist, I will have no choice but to make a public statement disclosing my position as part owner of this company. I hope it does not come to that. She CC'd Mark Fellows Geraldine and key board members, then sent the email heart pounding. Showing her full hand wasn't her first choice, but if that's what it took to protect herself and ensure meaningful change, she'd do it without hesitation. The next day, the phone calls came flooding in urgent conciliatory calls from board members she'd never met in person, from corporate attorneys offering to clarify the situation, from PR officials wanting to coordinate a robust public statement. Cassandra answered them politely but firmly. She demanded real action. By the week's end, Delta published an official statement on their corporate website and social media platforms, denouncing discrimination and clarifying that Ms. Brooks' VIP status was indeed valid. They acknowledged a gate agent had mishandled the situation, leading to corrective action, and promised new training protocols would be rolled out across major hubs nationwide. The statement read in part: Delta Airlines remains deeply committed to creating a welcoming environment for all passengers. We regret the incident that occurred at Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport, in which Miss Cassandra Brooks, a Diamond Medallion member traveling in first class, was unfairly denied VIP boarding. Disciplinary action has been taken, and we are introducing new measures to ensure such an event does not repeat. Cassandra's phone lit up with messages of support. Andrew Carter texted, glad they finally owned up. Let me know if you need anything else. DeAndre sent a thumbs up emoji. The clouds of controversy parted, leaving a clear path for the changes Cassandra had advocated. But the final piece of satisfaction came when a Delta board member personally called her, apologizing for the entire ordeal and thanking her for spurring a crucial upgrade to their training programs. You exposed a weakness in our system, he said. We owe you a debt for ensuring we address it. Cassandra, though gratified, was quick to emphasize, you owe your customers the debt. I just hope this leads to real lasting transformation, not a temporary fix. That weekend, Cassandra found herself standing in the living room of her Atlanta condo, gazing at the skyline through floor-to-ceiling windows. She felt an overwhelming sense of relief, recalling the humiliating moment at Gate 26, contrasted with the official statement now acknowledging she had been in the right all along. The circle was complete. Thank you for joining me on this roller coaster of corporate scandal, personal triumph, and justice finally served. Cassandra Brooks went from silent observer to fearless advocate, proving that when we stand against discrimination, our voices can reshape even the largest institutions. By refusing to back down, she not only defended her own dignity, she championed a new chapter of accountability in an industry that serves millions. If Cassandra's story inspires you to seek fairness and respect in your own life, remember to share this video with your friends and family. Let's keep these conversations going, because change doesn't happen when we stay silent. It happens when we speak our truth and demand better. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for more stories that empower, enlighten, and remind us. One voice can spark an entire revolution. Thank you for watching.